Hello, my name's Dr. John Doyle. I'm a senior lecturer in the architecture programs at RMIT University. I'm the program manager for the Master of Architecture at RMIT, and today I'm going to take you through a bit of information about our programs and what we do and what you might do if you decide to join us in the future. So before we start, maybe can I get the next slide, please? I'd like to say Wominjeka, which is Wurundjeri for welcome. And I'd like to also formally acknowledge the people of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations as the traditional owners of the land in which RMIT conducts its business. I respectfully I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Next slide, please. So just a bit of housekeeping. This webinar is going to be recorded and it will be sent via email along with the slide deck that you see now within 24 hours. It's very efficient. There'll be a Q&A session at the end for about 15 minutes, and I believe there will be a brief survey after the event, so please look out for that. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about RMIT architecture. We have there's a series of things that we think we do which is different to others in other programs in Australia and around the world. Perhaps one thing to consider is really the necessity for doing a Master of Architecture. If you're interested in applying, you probably already know some basic information. The Master of Architecture in Australia is the accredited degree, accredited by the AACA nationally. To enrol in it, you'll need a Bachelor of Architectural Design or an equivalent degree. To become a registered architect, you need to do the Master of Architecture, have 2 years of work experience, and then you can sit for the APE, which is the Australian practice exam. On the right of the screen, you'll see some information about our program. We're ranked 25th globally for the QS rankings and number 3 in Australia. I'm sure you're all aware of that information, but there it is. So today we're specifically going to be talking about the Master of Architecture. Next slide, please. So it's a 2-year program. You'll be doing that hopefully with us in the City of Melbourne at our Melbourne campus, which is right in the centre of the city. We take people in twice yearly for the start of semester 1 and semester 2 in February and in July. And it's probably worth pointing out that the time it takes, or the contact that you'll be undertaking in contact hours, are variable depending on when you enrol, what you enrol in, and the pathway you take through the program. And I'll talk a little bit about that today. Next slide, please. So here are the units or the courses you'll need to undertake in order to complete the degree. There's sort of 3 or 4 broad areas. We have 3 units of professional practice, in which we teach you the context of the profession, how to run a business, the ethics of professional practice. There's a unit on the history of architecture and urbanism in Asia, which we use as our main theoretical course to frame everything you do in the program. There's a series of electives where you can look at various different aspects of practice through robotic fabrication, theory, Revit, various other things. But the core of our program is design, and that runs through design units 7, 8, 9, and then the design thesis major project. Next slide, please. So why study at RMIT? What do we do? So I guess that idea about design is sort of at the core of everything we're interested in. We say that our degree or our school values design-led, venturous experimentation in practice, and we live that through everything we do. All of our staff, be it the faculty staff who are permanently at RMIT, or the sessionals who are the staff that come in to teach particular things, are practitioners or practitioner academics. We've developed an international reputation for venturous design-led experimentation, both through teaching and also research. Everything you do in terms of design studio, professional practice, electives will be led by practitioners and practitioner academics who have developed a reputation for excellence, and this will be undertaken in a studio model. And we are, sorry, I'm just reading off the slides a bit. We have extensive links to industry, and that's how we bring industry in to teach our studios. But this is, we also reach out to industry to engage in problem solving and studio-based or kind of project-based activities in the real world. Next slide, please. So some examples of what that means in terms of graduate outcomes or where you might end up. The last, I believe, 8 or 9, sorry, the next slide might reveal this, of the Victorian Emerging Architecture award-winning Emerging Architect Awards have gone to alumni of RMIT Architecture, and you can see some of them here. Next slide, please. And 2 of the people that you see on your screen here being Amy Muir, who is the National Emerging Architect, and Ben Milbourne, are actually on staff at RMIT. So they're practitioner academics that are recognised for their excellence in practice, but they're also involved in the university in teaching and research. Next slide, please. It's not only individuals that have been successful, practices that have directors that have been alumni of RMIT or that are closely involved with our program have been extremely successful at the awards over the last 10 years. So a number of the gold or sort of the major awards have been given to alumni of the school, including the buildings that you see here, and which includes the RMIT Design Hub on the left there, which is where we're based. Next slide, please. And again, some more award winners from alumni from RMIT, including the New Academic Street, which is one of the major campus buildings that are just over the road from where we're based in the centre of Melbourne. Next slide, please. And so it's worth asking if a design studio is at the core of the master's program, and it's sort of around everything that we revolve, that we do. What is a design studio? So design studio is basically a double credit point subject, a course that's worth twice as many of your other courses, in which we simulate the doing of an architectural project, whatever that may be, from a fabrication-based studio looking at robotics, or an urban-focused studio, or a studio that looks at poetics, whatever it may be. The studio will simulate or take on a problematic which will be solved through architectural design and design experimentation over the course of a semester. And so the way that our studios are structured, all students enrolled in the last semester of the bachelor, and then the first 2 semesters of the masters and the third semester of the masters are pooled together in a big group that we call the upper pool, or the Masters Design Studio pool. And from this pool of students, to this pool of students, we offer about 18 to 22 studios on a semester, depending on enrolments, which you can, as a student, pick from. You can pick any one of these studios that you can take on, curate your own pathway through the program to tackle different problems and different thematics. So at the start of every semester, we have what's called the balloting presentation, which you can see on the screen here. Usually it's in a room, a big lecture hall, not so much at the moment, but the idea is that all of the studio leaders will get up in front of the student cohort, present their ideas, make a pitch to the students, and then you pick the one or the series of studios that you'd most like to do. You work very closely in small groups of between 12 and 14 students weekly to develop the project. You present your work to your peers, you present your work to critics who come in from industry, either at the mid-semester or the end of semester presentation. And you get iterative feedback and work through a problem through the course of a semester. Next slide, please. Here's an example of a weekly crit. So this is the Terminal Drive Studio, which I believe ran last year, led by NH Architects, specifically Dean Boothroyd from that practice. And this is the group looking at a large-scale urban project in which students are designing a small piece of that and trying to get inside the scale of this for a project near the airport. Next slide, please. And so in addition to this, you take on a number of other courses, perhaps the most interesting of which is the design electives. And these electives are really open-ended, skills-based or research-based or problem-based courses, which vary every semester, which are often led or kind of run in conjunction with people from industry, in which you explore a particular technical or skills problem. So some of the more popular electives deal with the KUKA robot that we have in the basement of our building, and students can work on projects that use that robot and the other equipment in our fabrication lab. Next slide, please. We have a large network of industry partners with which we regularly collaborate. We were putting these images together last week, and I feel like this is only a few of the people who regularly are involved in our studios. But we always make sure that we kind of have a very close connection out to industry, and that there are opportunities not only to have people come into the university to teach and to offer feedback, but also opportunities for you to go out to a number of these practices and undertake either placements or studio-based learning in those environments. Next slide, please. So if you're interested in knowing a bit more about our program and what we're up to, you could connect to us with through architecture.rmit.edu.au. This is our gallery site. We like to use it as a way of capturing all the things that we do. It's got all the studios, it's got news items, it's got profiles on all of our staff, and as well as our adjunct professors and things like that. So you can go on there and have a look, and it's also sort of captured sort of work over the years, so you can get a sense from this as to what you might be doing if you were to join us. Next slide, please. This is the RMIT Instagram, RMIT Architecture Instagram, which you can also access through the gallery portal. I think it's at RMIT Architecture. This is also a way that we capture what we do. We like to make sure that everything we do is sort of pumped and sort of captured on this page. Is not only a way for us talking out to our students and to our network, but also as a way of us remembering what we do. Next slide, please. This is an example. At the end of each year, we have the exhibition. Recently, it's been an online exhibition. More in the past, we've always held it at the Design Hub, and it's been a sort of all-school show of students, students from first year all the way up to the graduating thesis projects. We hand out a series of awards to students who have completed and done excellent work, both in studios but also through their major projects. And here are some images of past award winners. Next slide, please. So, very, very quick, flown through it. I feel like I had more slides previously, but that's the end of it. Hopefully I've covered off enough there to prompt a few questions, but I suppose we can always go back. If there's any other questions, maybe I can sort of take those. So I can see a few coming through here. So somebody's asked, can I give an example of the types of studios that we might be looking at next year? Studios are different every single semester, so I can't promise what we will be doing for certainty, but I can promise that there will be an amazing choice. And again, the numbers aren't necessarily fixed, but I would imagine we'd have about 18 or 20 studios. So some of the things you might look out for, and again, what I strongly recommend you do is keep an eye on our Instagram, keep an eye on on the online exhibition that we'll be publishing through that and through our other channels. This will give you an opportunity to see what I'm talking about, but you can look out for some studios potentially by Roland Snooks, looking at digital fabrication and robotic processes. I would imagine we will have some form of studio in partnership with the Y Factory and MVRDV in Holland. Usually that involves travel to the Netherlands to go and work on a workshop there, to do a workshop there. Probably that won't happen next year. We'll wait and see. Hopefully it does, but probably it won't. But I would imagine there'll be some form of partnership with MVRDV happening. I'll be running a studio that looks at large-scale urban design problems in Asia, probably in China, in partnership with people in that country, and also with the Master of Urban Design. So people will be, the sort of at the scale of the cities will be doing things. I would expect there will be studios by Patrick Macasayat looking at gamification of architectural design. The list goes on. There's no specific studios that have been locked down yet, but if you want to have a sense of what we will be looking at, you can have a look at what we've run this year, and you can imagine that there'll be a similar offering. Do we have any other questions? Maybe I'll just jump in into the Q&A. One of them published. So what do we look for in a folio when applying for the Master of Architecture? We don't, so it's a bit different to if you were coming into the Bachelor. When you come into the Master of Architecture, we want to see, obviously there's a basic level of skill that we want to see that you've covered off, the ability to know how to put a building together at a basic level, and that you know how to communicate your ideas to some extent. But ultimately what we're really looking for is how you think. What are your key, like how do you think, how do you present your ideas, how do you form a proposition around architecture? So of course we don't expect you to be ready to practice. That's sort of not what we don't want you fully formed. We want you to demonstrate that you have the capacity to be experimental, and that you have the capacity to be propositional through architecture, and you know what that means. That's what we're looking for. So the folios that often succeed are the ones where people take a risk, are prepared to show sort of ambition through their past work, and clarity of thinking. So that doesn't, like perhaps a clue would be more rather than less in terms of the work that you show. Don't over curate. Show us sort of who you are through the work that you do. That would be the best advice I could offer. Are there examples of graduates being employed by industry partners? There are examples. I don't know that it would be appropriate for me to name their names. I don't know that there are any one of the list of industry partners that I just provided to you, or rather the logos of industry partners that I provided to you, that I would imagine almost every single one of them has an RMIT graduate in it. I had a conversation a few weeks ago with somebody from RMIT in the engagement space who really was asking, thank you, who was asking, we were talking about how students from RMIT architecture get work. So one of the things I said, that the number one way that students or graduates from our program get work is through the staff that teach them, through the experiences they get and the engagement and the connections that they form through doing studio. So I think it's safe to bet that the industry partners that we have will be picking up our graduates. They usually suck them up pretty early on in there before they even finish. So hopefully that answers that question. So the Q&A will close at 5:55, just for everybody's, I don't know whether I'm supposed to announce that, but I would suggest that means get your questions in. So assuming we may not be able to have face-to-face classes next year, how will the degree be taught in the coming months? Well, one, I hope we have face-to-face classes next year. RMIT has been developing a series of plans as to how 2021 might play out. I think things like studio, things like major project that require face-to-face, or that are best handled face-to-face, will be prioritised. So if we can get in at all, it will be those kinds of things that are important that get, I would imagine, get brought back. Now, if we are as we are now, if we're all socially distanced and unable to get back into the building, the way that it will be taught probably will be the way that it is now, which is being through online platforms such as this Microsoft Teams or Zoom type platforms. I guess I can't give a blanket answer to that because every single studio, every single course is different. We give our staff and our studio leaders an incredible amount of freedom. We believe that they have they're the best people to decide the pedagogical framework by which they deliver their content and the way that they run their studios. So, and that goes all the way from the face-to-face. When studios run face-to-face, they look very, very, they're very, very different from studio to studio to studio. So what I can't really answer that question completely, but what I will say is that whatever is done will be interesting. Some studios have been running through online gaming portals. Some have been through kind of like conversations through Instagram. There's been all kinds of crazy stuff that's happened this year. It's exhausting, but and I hope we can sort of augment that with a face-to-face experience. But all I can say is whatever happens, we'll make it something you don't expect. What's the overall employment outlook for architects? I can't answer that completely. I mean, I would be lying if I said that it's not tricky at the moment. We don't know what 2021 really offers us in terms of how the economy is going to play out. I can't really predict that. I mean, it's been, if anything, we've seen that this year that every prediction has been wrong, basically. What I would say is that, a 2-year degree, if you enroll in semester 1 next year, you'll be graduating into practice really in the end of 2022 and really looking to kind of get into the industry in 2023 if you don't do any work between now and then. So you need to be thinking 2 years ahead. What I would think you should be doing is also thinking 10 years beyond that. So enrolling in a degree, if anything, what this experience has proven is that people who are undertaking a master's level study in disciplines like architecture need to be training or kind of learning how to adapt to uncertainty and to the unknown. And so being able to take on a diverse range of soft skills through the doing of that master's. So I would argue that we do that really well. We challenge students to solve difficult and sort of ambiguous and unknowable problems that may relate to the world as we know it now, but probably set you up better for an uncertain future and being able to adapt to that. So I don't have a clear answer as to what the prospects are like, but what I would argue is that no matter what they are, you should be training yourself or kind of enrolling in a master's degree that allows you to do more than just graduate into a position of practice, because it will, as we know it, it will change anyway, one way or another. So I think so I've got a couple more questions, sorry. You can work overseas with this. So the question is, can I work overseas with this qualification? Yes, you can. I have, and many do. So we have a lot of alumni based in Asia in particular, but people also choose to go to Europe, people go to North America. There are reciprocal arrangements in terms of registration with the UK and the US and a few other countries or parts of the world. But ultimately, our degree is well recognised and well regarded around the world, perhaps better in terms of within the discipline of architecture than it is broadly within the sort of rankings of the QS. So yes, you can, and yes, you should go overseas and kind of use the degree to its fullest. I would sort of suggest the great thing about being an architect, after I graduated from RMIT, I went overseas for several years and practiced in Japan and a few other places. The great thing about architecture is that it is, it doesn't fix you to any one place, and architects are great travellers. So you should definitely think about a sort of a post-graduation journey. And So examples of graduates who have done this, well, me, Roland Snooks, who is actually back on our staff, travelled and was based, he was actually made his name in the US, worked for Ryzen Umamoto before setting up his own practice. In terms of, there's Jessica In is based in, I probably shouldn't name names, but she's based at Heatherwick in London. We've got Rory Hyde is a graduate around my time from RMIT. He's the director of the V&A design curator at V&A in London. There's people at Zaha, there's people at MVRDV, there's people at OMA. We're everywhere. Like you'll find RMIT graduates popping up all over the place. Ren Yang and Partners is a very new emerging practice in Chongqing. Yeah, look, there's RMIT, we just get around, and we don't do it anymore, but we used to have these events called Design Life Asia, where it was basically an alumni event for designers that came out of our design degrees based in Asia, and you would get hundreds of people showing up to that who've sort of popped up in whatever city that was based. So there's a huge demand for our graduates overseas, and you'll find yourself part of a huge global network if you come out of our programs. I think that's more or less it. I don't know if there's any more questions. So it doesn't seem like there's any more that are coming through for me. It's very disembodying to be talking to a screen, especially a series of logos. It's very intimidating. But anyway, look, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming along and asking questions and your interest in the program. We're very interested in you guys applying. I believe that there's a team that's going to be able to help you with information on how to apply and everything like that. I encourage you to apply. I look forward to seeing your folios and seeing your smiling faces in interviews in the next couple of months. And I really do look forward to wish you the best of luck with that. And I hope I see you all in person next year in 2021.